welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the All Around Atlanta Sports Podcast, or Atlanta Teen Sports Center, whatever you prefer to call us. We were a little bit late on this episode, guys. As you're listening to this a few days later, or a few hours later, probably. College football game day has already started. Games are currently on right now. I'm watching one on mute as we speak. But yeah, we're here with the Week 1 preview. Breaking down the matchups from each game of the Power 5 conference, and I'm going to go over to Connor on how he's doing and what's his, first of all, we'll jump right into on his biggest upset today. We'll say that first. So, Connor, what's your biggest upset game today?
This might sound, I'm not exactly sure, but maybe Appalachian State picks up the win against Georgia.
And why do you say that?
I just think that they're a better team than before the last time they played Georgia. Of course, they got wrecked the last time, but I think they've improved tremendously, and they've shown that their program can pull off many upsets, especially what they did back in 2007. Even though they have an entirely different team now, I think they can end up getting a win today. It'll be a very close game.
Also, how's that Madden game going you're on right now?
It's going well.
All right, anyway, all jokes aside, my biggest upset, I'd actually have to agree with Connor on that one, is I do think Appalachian, not just because I'm not a Georgia fan, I think that Appalachian State has a good chance of actually picking up the win against Georgia. Come on. As I'm trying to pull up ESPN, ads keep coming up. Another one that was chosen is Youngstown State over Pittsburgh today. Was currently in the first quarter of our own ACC network. Just got underway. It's 7-0 Pittsburgh. I guess they scored on their opening drive. Connor, do you think that could be a possible upset as well for Youngstown State to pull off the upset up in Heinz Field?
Yeah, I think it's still early to tell, but I mean it could be a very interesting matchup. Like many matchups, like of course Kent State almost has no chance. Because didn't you say earlier that Kent State got an interception or something like that?
I'm talking about Youngstown State versus Pittsburgh, dude.
No, but I was making a point about Clemson.
Sure. Okay, say that again then. What was your point?
Didn't you say that Kent State got an interception?
Yes, they did.
Yeah. So,
the score is 28-3.
Matchups like that, it's still it reminds us that you can never take anything for granted, considering about, of course, the biggest upset in college football history. Sorry if any of our Michigan fan listeners are listening to this one, but I just think that every team has an opportunity, but I mean I just anything, you just can't take anything for granted, in my opinion.
I definitely think so too. Is you can't. Any team can beat another team on every given day. It's been showing that for years. And yeah, but those are our biggest upsets. We'll get into the games now, specifically. Starting in the ACC, a game that's just got underway about halfway through the second quarter, so maybe a little bit further than just underway, Blake. Talking to myself there. But California taking on North Carolina. They are currently tied up 7-7. North Carolina's got a ball in the California 26, 2nd and 2. That's also on one of the ACC alternate networks. So, Connor, who's your pick in that one? And do you think California can get a strong start? Because, as you know, the past few years, they haven't really been the best.
Yeah, North Carolina's going to have a really strong season again this year. But I think California, I think they have a tremendous opportunity here to get the win today. Definitely not a Mickey Mouse team, as you referred to teams like Kent State, but I think definitely everyone has a chance to win, I believe, in this matchup today.
And also, keep staying in the SEC. Bethune-Cookman taking on number 18 ranked Miami. That's the 9th, as Miami just scored a few seconds before I say that. Makes it 9-3 with the PAT to come. What are your thoughts on that one? As my cat knocks over an object in the background, Smokey. Who do you think is going to win that one? Connor, do you think Miami's going to be stronger? Do you think Bethune Cook has a chance for an upset there in opening week down in Sun Life Stadium?
Oh, I'm sorry, Blake. Can you repeat the question? You're kind of crackling in and out.
Who do you think is going to win? Do you think it's Bethune Cook's got a chance to upset, or Miami's going to be strong on opening day in Sun Life Stadium?
I think Miami's going to take it to them today, but like I said, you can never take anything for granted.
And we already said the Youngstown Pittsburgh. Now, this is an interesting one. NC State versus South Carolina, two teams that have been struggling and don't have really the best roster when you think of it. One thing I'm looking at is I really couldn't decide who was going to win this one. I have NC State in a very close one. And currently South Carolina is favored by 6.5 points. Connor, what are your overall thoughts on this? I think it's going to be a very good game, but I'm really not sure still, but I had to pick NC State just to put a pick down there. So what do you think, Connor?
Yeah, it's about evenly matched. I think if I'm correct that NC State I think is favored by maybe 3 or 4, but it's an evenly matched game and it should be a nice one to watch.
I agree with you on that one. All right. William Mary versus Virginia. No really reason to put that one. Virginia is clearly a bad team. They're still favored by 28 points, so you know it's going to be a blowout in that one. Do you agree with me on that?
Yes.
Do you have any other facts you'd like to say about the game, though, just in case we skip it?
Yeah, I don't have any more facts.
All right. NC Central versus Duke. Not really much there, too. Duke's favored by 36 points. So we'll move on one more time to the game that's at 7:30 tonight on Fox. Up in Indianapolis, we got the 16th-ranked Louisville Cardinals taking on Purdue, the train's Boilermakers. So I think this is going to be a very interesting game. I do have Louisville in the end, as they still are favored by 25.5 points, but I do think it's going to be a better game than it's supposed to be. What do you think? As the Kent State-Clemson game comes to halftime, as it's 28-3 Clemson.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
So what makes you think it's going to be a good game? I just think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. Do you agree with me on how? I think Connor's having some mic trouble, guys. We'll move on. We'll actually get to that one later. That was Florida State, Alabama. We'll get to that one at the end. Wake Forest and Presbyterian already final on Thursday. Friday, Syracuse beat Central Connecticut. Boston College beat Northern Illinois 23-20. That was actually a pretty good game. So, moving on to tomorrow night on ABC. The 22nd ranked West Virginia Mountaineers take on the 21st ranked Virginia Tech Hokies. This game is supposed to be very good indeed. Virginia Tech's currently favored by 4. This rivalry is back after 4 or 5 years of it not being, or maybe even more of it not even being played. So it's back on the grand stage opening night. I think this is going to be an interesting game. I believe it's going to be played in Baltimore. So that'll be on Sunday night, still on opening week. Connor, who do you think is going to win and why?
In which matchup?
West Virginia versus Virginia Tech. 22 ranked versus 21st.
Virginia Tech gets that one, and here's why. I'm not an expert on Maryland necessarily, but I think from what I've seen and heard that Virginia Tech they'll be even better than they were last year in terms of scoring more points because don't they have a new quarterback this year?
Who? West Virginia or Virginia Tech?
Virginia Tech.
I'm actually not sure. I know West Virginia does because Will Greer from Florida transferred there.
Yeah, but it'll go down to the wire for sure. I just think because Georgia Tech beat them, Virginia Tech. And Matthew Jordan, who's probably going to start on Monday night against Tennessee.
And we'll get to that.
not to mention that they have Freddie Burden now, also with a leg, some kind of leg injury. I don't remember the details of that, but that was everyone else in the game. They just kind of took it to him. It was just kind of weird because Virginia Tech never ran the ball that night, so it's really hard. Sometimes you have your game on, sometimes you don't. And, Virginia, new quarterback, and it could take him a few years to kind of get into the system a little bit.
So, basically what you're saying is, it's going to be a sloppy game all around, but you think Virginia Tech's going to get it done?
Yes.
Actually, I have to disagree on you, as Corso was saying, not so fast. I think West Virginia's going to pull it out, especially because my dad's best friend from dental school, Jim Varro, he's listening out there. Go ears, everyone, because don't be afraid. They won't be afraid to show their side. Yes, they have had some troubles. They get up higher in the rankings, and then they get knocked down by Oklahoma or Oklahoma State, one of those teams, up when they have to travel halfway across the country every few weeks just to go play a game. It'll definitely be interesting, but overall, I also got West Virginia winning. So I'm actually going to flip it around by the favor. Virginia Tech's favored by 4. I say West Virginia wins it by a touchdown. So that's the ACC. We'll get on to the other two games in a little while. Connor, would you rather go to the Big 10 or Big 12?
Big 12.
All right. Big 12 it is, co-host. And there are actually a few games going on right now. So first of all, Tom Herman, former coach at Houston, decides to go to the bigger boy in Texas this offseason. He's got his first game coming up right now. Halftime approaching on that one. Number 23 ranked Texas trailing Maryland 30-14 late in the second quarter. Texas has got the ball on their own 29. That's actually on FS1, so actually I'm going to turn that on really quickly. But yeah, it looks like the time's ticking down in the first half, and they're looking to just score a few more times, or not a few more, just get themselves back in a manageable range. As they show a replay here, looks like Texas has actually moved down the ball a little bit, as they're now on their own 44. But who do you think is going to win in that one? Do you think Texas is going to make a comeback and show that their program is still there, or do you think they'll be a fluke as they've always been the last few years, as they've been ranked high to start the year, or they'd get a big win and then they'd just fall right back off the map?
I'm not exactly sure for that, but I'm not exactly sure in that matchup, to be honest. Like, who do you have winning that one?
Actually, I have Texas, but based on what's going on right now, I'm really not sure anymore. It could be Maryland. It's 30-14 with 1:20 to go, as Texas faces a 3rd and 2 right now. So, if you had to guess, though, Connor, who would it be, based on what's going on right now?
I would say Maryland.
Because there's been a flag on the field. Looks like it's a false timeout by Maryland. My bad. But I actually got, so basically I had Texas winning in the original point, but it looks like they could still win. But overall, I think Maryland's going to win based on the circumstances that are going on right now. Moving on to number 7, Oklahoma versus University of TEP. I don't know what that stands for. That's why I'm just going to abbreviate it. But Oklahoma is favored by a great 43 points. As Bob Stoops, who's been their coach for 18 years, had stepped down at the end of the season last year. They got the youngest coach ever in FBS history coming on to coach, and so far he gets to show his and looks like 118 minutes. So he gets to run with the team on the field, get them fired up, and get the boomer-zoomer rolling. Who do you think is going to win, Connor? Do you think it's going to be a blowout, or do you think it'll actually be a pretty close game and Oklahoma will be as good as they're hyped up to be with their new coach?
I think it will be a blowout.
But do you still think that Oklahoma's going to be a good team with their new coach, or do you think it's more of a fluke and they'll have to kind of rebuild a little bit?
I think they'll have to rebuild. A new coach is always hard to come by. New coach, it always takes a few years. to get used to the way their style of play. Like, 'cause they always have a different game plan coming into every game. So I remember it was hard for Georgia Tech because Paul Johnson coming in just as a normal running offense, and now they're in the triple option. That took a few years for getting used to and having to recruit the proper players to use for that kind of offense.
And I have a question for you, Connor. I just want a fun fact. What year did Paul Johnson come in? I've actually slipped out of my mind.
2007.
And who was the coach before that? Wasn't he the one that was there for the 80s and 90s, and he was there a long time?
Yeah, I forget the guy's name who was there before him. But I just remember that Paul Johnson came in 2007.
But he's the one that kept the Florida-Georgia rivalry on the map as it was. Now it's more of a, Tech will get away in a few years, as we know. But we'll see. Anyway, moving on. I'll skip the Texas Tech Eastern Washington. We kind of know who's going to win that one. Liberty Baylor, woohoo. I actually don't see that many other great matchups here in the Big 12 other than West Virginia, Virginia Tech, what we've already covered. But we will get into the Tulsa versus Oklahoma State, who's now ranked number 10 in the country to start the year. Colin, I bet you're hyped about that. Overall, I think Oklahoma State looks really good this year. Only problem is, can they knock off Oklahoma? They always get to them late in the season. And now that they do have a Big 12 championship that could lead them to a playoff, we'll have to see, because they do have a lot of big boys in front of them, like Penn State, Ohio State, USC, Alabama, Florida State, Clemson, all ahead of them. Same with Oklahoma. So if Oklahoma shows that they're still that team, as they were, they definitely will have a lot of trouble, because they've never really been able to get over the hump against Oklahoma over the past few years. They've had a big game, college game. They've always wanted to go there, and then it's always been a big fluke, as Oklahoma's ended up blowing them out in the end. So, Connor, what do you say on that? On how Oklahoma State's going to be able to get over the hump and get into the Final Four this year?
Oklahoma State, they've always had their injury issues, pretty much with on both sides of the ball, even special teams. That's their primary issue, which is keeping guys healthy. And if you can keep guys healthy this year, they've gotten really close, up to as close to I think it's 5 or 6 last year. Getting really, really close. And I think this year, of course, they just need to stay healthy, in my opinion. Because they have the same talent as they had in the past 3 or 4 previous years. So I think they'll definitely do well this year. The key is just to stay healthy.
You gotta agree on that one. Now let's move on to the Big Ten. So the Big, a.k.a. 10-14, as Texas is now on a 4th and 2. The flag comes in. Anyway, Ball State versus Illinois going on right now. It's at halftime on Big Ten Network. Illinois leads that one. That'll definitely be an interesting one to the finish. I actually think Illinois is going to come out, but it could be a final field goal, because Illinois really isn't the best team out there in the Big Ten. One of the worst. Iowa, Wyoming, halftime on Big Ten Network. Same with on ESPNU, Bowling Green, and Michigan State. Michigan State looking to have a bounce back year. What are your overall thoughts on that, Connor? Do you think Michigan State's going to have a bounce back year successfully, and they'll be back to one of the top 10 programs?
Yes, I think Michigan is going to have a very good year this year.
Michigan State.
Oh, Michigan State. Sorry,
Yes.
You're kind of crackling in and out there. I thought you said Michigan. Michigan State. I think it's very interesting with them, because sometimes they have a very off year, sometimes they're spot on, and so it matters. Same thing with Oklahoma State. They just need to stay healthy. Is basically the primary issue the primary issue past years for not getting into at least one of the top bowls in the country.
Last year, or as you remember 2 years ago they faced Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, right?
Yes.
Well, last year they have to believe they only won 3 or 4 games, so that was definitely a down season for Michigan State. I think they definitely need to bounce back, but we'll definitely see. Penn State currently on 28-0 over Akron in the second quarter on ABC. That game's going to be interesting down to the wire. What? Not down to the wire. What am I saying? I can't speak today. It's gonna be interesting to see how Penn State is. I should say, as it's halftime in Texas, 30-14 Maryland. I definitely think that Penn State's gonna be a good team, but are they gonna be able to get over Ohio State, Wisconsin, Nebraska, and hopefully Michigan State if they bounce back? So it's definitely. I don't think there's gonna be enough room for them. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you on that one. They definitely have a really tough schedule this year. And I think I agree with you on basically what you said with, basically just, like you said in this Sugar Bowl, it's going to be a challenge for them.
But yeah, with all the other teams that are stacking up above them, it's definitely going to be interesting to see if they have enough room left in them. In that area to be able to get to the conference championship and be able to get to the Final Four. And moving on to the game I'm more interested in today that I'm not actually going to. Haha.
I'm going on to Monday night.
So, sorry for that silence there, guys. I just had to think of what I was going to say. Michigan versus Florida down in Dallas. So that down in Arlington, I should say, in AT&T Stadium. For where the Cowboys play. It's definitely going to be interesting to show how many people show out for what's happened with Hurricane Harvey down there. But I think we'll still be a good crowd. And I think it's going to be a good game. Walton Spate coming out for, I believe, his senior year coming out. I think he's going to give the Gators a tough task as they finally released their quarterback last night. For Florida, redshirt freshman who's going to make his first start today is a sophomore now, Felipe Franks. Overall, with Florida having 10 people out, I think it's definitely going to be a tough task for them, including with Antonio Callaway, James Robinson, and Jordan Scarlett. So it's going to be up to other guys like Tyree Cleveland, LaMichael Pirine, and Brandon Powell to be able to step on that Florida offense. Yes. This is the best offense Jim McElwain has been able to deal with over his era at Florida. This is his third year. I think, but I just don't, Ian, as a Florida fan, I don't see how Florida will be able to get it done overall. I really hope they win. It's just going to be a tough task. I mean, Michigan is favored by 5.5 points. They bumped it up from 3.5 a few hours ago. Who do you have winning, Connor?
It's a tough decision, but I'm going to have to go with Michigan.
Why do you say that?
It's just that I think that they're just going to, I don't think Florida has what it takes to, because that's what made the upset, even though they have an entirely different team because they're of how well they recruit. So it's kind of similar to back in 2007, like they're so much bigger and faster than Appalachian State was. So, I mean, it was just a matter of like luck, almost in a way, not exactly. But of course, Florida has a much better chance than Appalachian State did. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'm going to take Michigan today.
Another thing to point out is these teams have played 2 times in this decade. Florida in the Outback Bowl, I think it was the Outback Bowl at least, back in, I think, 2007, in Tebow's first starting year. Michigan won 41-35 over Florida. And then a few years ago, it was in 2015, Michigan wins 41-7. Florida's trying to show that they can play with Michigan. Michigan is trying to say that they own Florida. And with a bunch of new defense and a lot of, I believe, on their offense, too, they don't have as many weapons as they did last year. This is definitely going to be an interesting game. I think it's going to be low scoring, like ESPN said, but who knows? Florida could pull up an upset and show that they're a really good team this year. Or Michigan can come out, get the win late in the game, and show that they're still, even with all the people gone, that they're still a good team as well. So it's definitely going to show how good these teams are. Anyway, moving on to other final scores moving on to other teams' scores from around the Big Ten. Buffalo beats Buffalo loses to Minnesota on Thursday, 17-7. Ohio State gets the job in the late fourth quarter. They're able to pull away from Indiana to win 49-21. Washington wins 30-14 over Rutgers, and Wisconsin wins 59-10 over Utah State. We're gonna go ahead and jump right into the SEC here. I think we might have to skip the Pac-12 for this one, guys, because I do have to go in a minute. But we'll skip right into the SEC here. I believe we have covered a few of these games. We'll just see. I'm gonna see what the Pac-12 games are really fast. That are huge. I think we already did cover a few. Do you feel like doing the Pac-12, Connor?
We can maybe cover that in a later show.
Yes, but let's see if I can even find it. I keep clicking on the wrong one. I don't even see Pac-12 on here for some reason. Huh. Oh well. I guess we'll have to skip the Pac-12 for this one, guys. Oh, there it is, right in front of my face. Let's see what they got going on. Oregon State, not really too important. Western Michigan and USC. USC's favored by a lot. Washington State looks like they're going to have a blowout whenever Southern Utah. Colorado State wins over Oregon State last night, 58-27. Actually, last week, my bad. And Stanford wins 62-7 out in Australia over Rice. On Thursday, Utah beats North Dakota 37-16, and Arizona State beat New Mexico 37-31. Final last night, Colorado beats Colorado State 17-3. Not 37. What am I saying? And we already covered this one. Washington beat Rutgers 30-14. One game we will cover, though, is Texas A&M, who did pull off the upset last year when UCLA came to town to face them in their stadium. Now they play out in LA this year. Who do you think is going to win this one? The boys from A&M or UCLA at home, Connor, and why?
I'm going to take UCLA at home, and because Texas A&M, they still have some talent, but I mean, really, it's just been they've just fallen apart the past few years. And UCLA, you can tell, is on the rise to getting back to the top 25. And I'm going to have to take them at home for this one. I just think that it's too much for Texas A&M to handle, and I could be wrong. But I think I just think that I think that they'll be. I don't think UCLA is going to really have an issue with them.
All right, we'll jump right into the SEC here. Holy cow! Look at the first one that they got pulled up. I just shared the channel to it as well. You're gonna get shocked on this one, Connor. At halftime in Missouri, Missouri State trails Missouri by a score of 35-48 at halftime. I don't know about you, but that's a bit crazy, especially for the SEC. That sounds more like a Pac-12 Mickey Mouse game to me. We'll see. Overall, I think Missouri's going to end up winning it in the end. Missouri's trying to get a bounce back here. They haven't really. The last 2 seasons after Gary Pinkel's been gone, they've kind of fell off the map. So they're looking to get a little bit better here and try to maybe get back to Atlanta for a third time in 5 years or 6 years or so. We've already covered that one and that one. Come on, ads. 1 second, guys. Ads are awful. Kentucky versus Southern Miss, also a big game. Kentucky's favored by 10, but I think Corso had hit as his super dog today. Southern Miss getting off the upset. Do you agree with him or not?
I don't really agree with that.
I mean, it is in Southern Miss's stadium, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's true.
That's at 4 on CBS Sports Network. We also got Charleston Southern Mississippi State. That's going to be a blowout by Mississippi State, clearly. We already covered Appalachian State, Georgia. How about this one? This should be a little bit interesting. Georgia Southern, one of the only 3 teams that run the triple option in the country, along with Navy and their guys from up north, Georgia Tech. It's definitely going to show how powerful they are, or especially how good Auburn is, as they go into Death Valley tonight, 7:30. Or not Death Valley, that's LSU and Clemson. Don't know what I'm saying. They go out to the plains and to see War Eagle fly, and it's definitely going to be interesting because Auburn has a big test next week at Death Valley to take on Clemson. So definitely see who's the powerful team there. Ole Miss and South Alabama later tonight. Vanderbilt Mid Tennessee later tonight, and the last one we'll cover here. The last three we'll cover here. We'll start with BYU LSU. LSU ranked number 13. That game was supposed to be in Houston, but because of Hurricane Harvey, it's been moved out to New Orleans where the Saints play to be able to have a better, crowd and have a better atmosphere there. Who do you think is going to win? Do you think BYU pull off the upset, but the LSU Tigers are able to hold that Tiger and win? I think LSU is going to win.
You can never go to sleep on BYU because they've been ranked. I think last year it was. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, they've usually popped up every now and again. So yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think if they win today, I wouldn't call it an upset, but it would be unexpected. Like I said, even if LSU does win the game, it'll be a definitely close game. I don't think it'll be a blowout.
I think LSU's going to win, but I think, as you agree, I think it's going to be definitely a good game. Let's see. LSU is favored by 2 touchdowns, so it should be a pretty good game. The final two here. The game we will see each other at on Monday, Connor. Georgia Tech versus Tennessee. Who you got in that one? Even though you're a big Georgia Tech fan, who's going to win? Tennessee or Georgia Tech?
As much as I hate to say it, I think I'm going to have to go with Tennessee to win the game. It's hard with losing Justin Thomas because graduating is still unknown if they're either going to start Tyquan Marshall or Matthew Jordan as the starting job. I don't think Paul Johnson's going to announce that until Monday afternoon or like right before game time because he doesn't want Tennessee. But I'm not going to leave Georgia Tech out. I think they could potentially win. But I'm going to have to agree that Tennessee wins by 3 to 7 points.
Ooh, well. Also, you got to point out is Tennessee's also having a quarterback trouble too. They lost Josh Dobbs and their big running back Alvin Kamara, and I believe one of their biggest defensive players in the country all at the draft last year. So they're a little bit different than they are. Looks like Florida and Georgia are back in the reins of the SEC East. I actually do think Georgia Tech's going to win. If not, it's definitely going to be a close game if Tennessee does win by a field goal, as that's what they're favored by right now. Anyway, moving to the one that everybody's been waiting for, that I'll be at later tonight as well. I'm going to the Fan Fest as soon as I leave here. It's Florida State versus Alabama. I think it's definitely going to be a close game. If Florida State wins, I think it'll definitely be an even better game. But I do have Alabama winning. I got my Julio Jones Alabama jersey. I bought one a few days ago just to wear for the game, to support my Falcons at the game. I think it's going to be a very good game. Florida State is also a very good team. I mean, this is probably one of the best opening week games that has ever been in the whole country, or the whole college football in history. Number 3 taking on number 1. Alabama is favored by 7.5. Who do you got, Connor?
It's going to be a close game, but I'm going to take Alabama by 3 to 10 points. I just think that their system is too good. I'm not going to leave out Florida State. They could potentially win. I'm not saying they won't for sure, but I'm saying that Alabama, I think, is going to give them a hard time. But Florida State will not be blown out.
Yeah, I think, as I said, it's definitely going to be a great game. I think Alabama's going to show that they still are a pretty good team. Or Florida State. I mean, Florida State and Clemson are already ranked 3 and 5. I'm already excited for that game in mid-season. It's definitely going to be a fun season. It's a big opening week. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of the All Around Atlanta Sports Podcast. We'll see you next time. Go A-Town. Have fun watching Pigskin this weekend on your favorite campus's team. I'm Blake Newsom with Connor Quinn signing off from Atlanta. Will we see you? We might do a live show on Monday night, guys. To see you at the. Are you going to the Fan Fest on Monday, Connor? To the Georgia Tech Tennessee game? Are you going to? You're going to the Fan Fest at the Congress Center?
Yes.
So do you want to do a live show there, preview on that game?
Yes.
All right. So maybe you get to see a special episode coming up in a few days. We'll let you guys know. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Atlanta Teen Sports Center, all lowercase, all one word, to get our latest updates on our page, or on Twitter at ATL Teens Sports. That's all lowercase, all one word as well. So we'll see you guys next time. I'm Blake Newsom, signing off with Connor Quinn from Atlanta. We'll see you Monday. Roll Tide, War Eagle, Go Tigers, whatever team you prefer out there. Have a good weekend, everyone.